want to know what it's like to write reports for the Crown Court as a probation officer, so in this video I'm going to be talking to 2 English tutors about how you need writing in your job as a probation officer. Now, if you're new to understanding about what it's like to be a probation officer, you might think it's all about just sitting in a room talking to someone, but there's actually a lot of assessments and reports. So I'm going to give you just a real life insight basically into the writing, the techniques and the skills that you will need as a probation officer. So come with me, and I'm joined by Natalie from Charmer Tuition. She's a GCSE English tutor, and Jessica from JPES Tutoring. She's English and Maths tutor. So you never know, they might be able to help you brush up on your skills. So yeah, see you in the video.
So Sarah, regarding with writing and developing those writing skills as a probation officer, like what does it entail?
Yeah.
Just in case if, you know, younger people want to get into that, like criminology, psychology, etc.
Yeah. So as a probation officer, so there's 2 different roles as a probation officer. You can be a general probation officer where you manage your own caseload and you will see the person and you have to do different assessments. The one I'm going to talk about today is being a court report writer. So you are a qualified probation officer, but you write reports for Magistrates Court and for Crown Court. So the first thing, I guess, is you have to think about your audience. So if you are writing for the Crown Court, you are writing for the judges, for solicitors, for barristers. The defendant obviously needs to be able to read and understand the report that's been written about him. And then they will read the report and make up their sentencing, but they will sentence that person based on your report.
So it matters what you say and how you say it.
It matters, yeah. So
that's well structured. So you know what they're learning. You know, when you get a teenager, they're like, oh, why do I have to do this essay, or why do I have to learn to structure my paragraphs?
Yeah.
So you have to do a lot of writing, and that's formal writing as well. So so it is important for them to do academic writing.
And the reason like the structure matters is because so I would have interviewed the defendant. So even as I'm interviewing him, like I'm experienced now, so I know what questions to ask, but you have to know what information you want to obtain, because you can't sit there for 4 or 5 hours. When you're working, you have a certain amount of time. So when you structure a report, I will write like the offence analysis. Even within that, I need to have paragraph structures, because you can't just have a whole thing of information, because when the judge is in court, they just want to, they want the information. They don't want to have to find, where's this, where's that? Give me the information.
And regarding with you have to send, so you're sending like detailed reports to solicitors, lawyers, etc.
Yeah.
And then what other writing tasks would they have to do that they are learning at the moment in school that is relevant to being a probation officer, if they was interested in like criminology or law or anything along those lines?
So one thing is like information gathering. So when you're at university, you obviously have to learn research skills. I'm guessing now your students, they know they're learning like research skills, are they?
It's something you have to teach.
Yeah, or you may have an extract.
Reinforced.
So you may have like an extract of information, like read this passage and then write about the passage.
Or they do a research project.
So in the real world, as a probation officer, you would have the CPS papers, which is all the documents of the offence. So say if somebody stabs someone, you get all the information of the exact piece by piece. This is what happened. He was there. She said this. He said that. You have to read all through that so you can get a sense. It's like you're imagining that you are there. And then you get the victim's side. So the victim will say, oh, I got stabbed in my left shoulder or whatever. And then you may get the medical report that says, you know, all the medical language of this. So you have to read all of that. And normally you read it before you interview the person so that you've got an accurate picture. And then you need to write it up. Now, obviously, you're not going to write 10 pages about she said this, he said that. You want to do a summary. So this is where summarising comes in. And analysis. And analysis, I know in GCSE, always attracts the higher marks, because that's the bit where you need to be succinct. You need to analyse the piece of text. So you need to analyse the offence. Why did it happen? How did it happen? Is more important than just the description, because the description is the factual information, and when you're in court, you don't need to repeat the facts. They've already been presented in the court. Your job is to analyse. So that's a crucial skill. So it's skill, research skills, analysis skills, writing in clear sentences. So when I was doing English, is that a big thing? That's a big thing.
That's what I'm wondering is, we spend a lot of time as English teachers and tutors trying to get students to write more and write in detail, but there is a skill level required in the real world where you're having to write, like you said, succinctly, writing not necessarily terse short sentences, but sentences like, here's what happened, here's the gist of it. And that is a skill too. What mistakes have been made within your job, like maybe with other probation officers, like what mistakes in writing have been made that like we as English folks can warn students to avoid for future?
I would say for myself, you know, when I was studying English at GCSE, I was average. I think I got a C for English. So I never went into thinking I'm going to have a career in English. I just had a career in crime because I was interested in that. English was a secondary skill that I needed. So when I started training, I remember going through the reports, and I had a tutor, because you get a tutor when you're training to be a probation officer. And she would read my reports, and she'd be like, oh, so like long sentences. I would just go on and on and on, waffle. And I used to think,
the waffling.
And that's because you're not clear yourself, or you haven't understood it. And I used to think, to be good at English, you have to produce like extravagant and use extravagant language and explain it in an extravagant way. And I've learned now over time, clear and succinct, simple. I used to think simple meant a lower grade, and I was trying to overcomplicate. So that would be the first thing. Students are maybe trying to overcomplicate because they think that's what's going to get them higher.
So overthinking it.
Yeah, that was my mistake.
Okay.
Overthinking. Overcomplicating.
Yeah, because you mentioned before about keep it simple. So it was like, and I've noticed that they don't know where to keep it simple and where to add detail.
So they're rather, add loads more in.
So just add all the detail, because I've got a student, they're so good with their vocabulary, and they are adding so many ambitious words and stuff, but even in the beginning of their story, it's like so much detail that you're like, there's a technique. Like,
there's a brief way to use detail.
Well.
It can be like, what's the brand name of like a weapon used? You don't have to say the big weapon. You can say like specify
just say
the size or the brand, if it's relevant. Just the blah 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 knife.
And that's the thing. If it's
the chef's
relevant.
knife.
So I think maybe the students will struggle to figure out, okay, what's relevant, and it's again not knowing the exam criteria. As a probation officer, we have a criteria, so it'll be, okay, it will have titles. They make it easy for you. We'll have this needs to be this, it needs to be in. And then we have things called quality assurance, where we will check other people's work. So we have essentially an essay criteria. So it makes sense to follow that. So I would recommend the students follow the essay criteria. It's there for a reason.
And know it and understand it. I think
and have it next to you. Like when I was starting out, I would have it next to me. I'd print it off. So I'm like, okay, in the offence analysis, they're looking for this. But
to their defence, like I've noticed with the assessment criteria, sometimes it could be really confusing, because sometimes with the examiners, especially if they haven't taught before, they are not very student friendly. So what I tend to do is try to translate it into simple language and just summarise the criteria, because the criteria sometimes
just want a couple of bullet points, okay,
really confusing, and sometimes I think it scares the student. So as you said, know the criteria, but also I would add, sometimes simplify the criteria as well in their own words, like, okay, what are they trying to tell me to do? If AO2 is to analyse the text in a distinctive way or whatever, formality or whatever, what does that mean? Analyse the text. And mention the writer's technique. That's it. So
Yeah. And then I guess kind of, so it goes from offence analysis, background information, and then you reach the conclusion. So likewise with your students, you get to the conclusion. So you were asking about the mistakes. I find it tough. Even now, I can waffle on and have such a long conclusion, and it's maybe because I'm not sure myself. So sometimes it's like, okay, come away from the situation, because sometimes by the time you get to the conclusion, if you've been doing it in one sitting, your brain's switched off. So maybe do that on a brand new day where you've had that headspace and really taken a step back and thought, okay, what is my conclusion here? Because for us, we have to then piece together everything we've written, that we're not introducing something new that's not been mentioned. So if, for example, we're saying, it's like a reminder, and it's summing up and then saying, I've looked at all the available evidence plus this, here is my conclusion. Get straight to the point. You don't need to be like going round in circles and not, because it doesn't show confidence. You need to show confidence in your writing.
And this is someone's life you're writing about. Even if they're an offender, what you are helping them hopefully improve their life, or what is it, like they are reaching some type of
rehabilitation?
Well, no, this is their sentencing. So say if this is one I done the other day. He did stab someone, so he will get a prison sentence whether he likes it or not, because that's the sentencing guidelines. So it's up to me to put forward a recommendation. So what can he do in prison to start rehabilitating himself?
So there's no room for error.
There's a safety there. It's helping them, but it's also helping society too.
Exactly.
And even those that's on the fence that you're maybe not sure. So there was one the other day. There's lots of like, I don't know, possession with intent to supply, so drug dealing. So that could attract a prison sentence, or you could get a probation, or common assault, which is not necessarily like a stabbing, but you may have pushed someone or something like that. You could get probation for that. So you've got to weigh up, if you think that person doesn't need to go to prison, you've got to have a strong argument for what's the alternative. So you then need to know what options are available, why, what's his background. So you really have to like piece together the information. It's construct an argument essentially. So I'm guessing you teach your students how to construct
incredibly important all the time.
Yeah, because like you just said, your argument will have an impact on that person's life. Your argument can prevent future victims. If you get it wrong, you know, that person that maybe should have been in prison is going to be out there, and there'll be multiple victims.
I mean, how many people have been dismissed because of faulty paperwork?
You mean at our stage, the probation stage, or because there's stuff that happens like before us? You know, it has to meet a certain criteria to even get to the court,
or even the
probation influence the next outcome. Like if something is misconstrued because of poor writing or confused writing, mismanagement.
Does that happen?
Can that happen? I guess.
I think it can happen, because the judge, they know the law, but they don't know about rehabilitation, about things that can help, things to protect the public. So if they're looking at your report and it has got some stuff in there that you're not sure about, they may just go off of, oh well, I've dealt with a violence thing before, and last time the people get this. You know, people get lazy and go to automatic thinking. So you really do need to influence, which is one of the criterias for students or people that are watching. One of the criterias when you do the application form is communicating and influencing, and that is exactly why, because it's so important in our job to influence and communicate.
So if there's a young person and they would, because you know, a lot of the times they're not told about different jobs that they can get into, that they have to do writing or use specific writing skills. They just think about, okay, I'm in this classroom and I have to write an essay on Macbeth. So like how, if they were interested in, you know, becoming a probation officer or getting into that field, like-minded field, how do they go about doing that, or how would they get more research about it as a young person?
Yeah, as a young person, first thing I would say is don't be put off. So like maybe you hearing me talk about writing, you're like, oh no, I didn't think that. First thing is, all jobs you will get trained. So like I just said, I made so many mistakes with my writing. My writing wasn't amazing. when I started, but I got trained, and each time you're doing something, you are learning a better way of doing it. So first thing is, you don't have to have like all the experience straight away. Jobs will train you up in the right way. Second thing, so to be a probation officer, you can have any degree, but there's also different routes where you don't need a degree. So that's kind of the second thing, is don't always assume you have to go to uni for certain jobs. It may take longer to get to where you want to be. I think having a degree gets you there quicker, and it gives you more options if you want to move on in the future, but it's not essential. There are other ways in. And third thing, do stuff that interests you. So like I just mentioned, I was the same, completely switched off with English at school because it was learning about Macbeth. I couldn't connect whatsoever. So I knew I do not want a job in English, because I just assumed having an English job means I'm going to be an English teacher. Sorry, you two. Or
there was a stabbing in Macbeth, though. There was a stabbing, and
there is crime. There's crime.
Because I was already just
there's
switched off.
suicides.
Yeah, but I was just switched off. Maybe I just didn't have good English teachers like you. But I was just switched off from it. So I didn't even connect. Oh yeah, that's crime. Because I was just like not there with it.
No, not yet. It's still a long time ago.
Yeah.
I have my hard drive as well.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I didn't explain
Guess
it.
what?
I can't
It's
explain it.
That thing can be expensive.
I always look so small. I need.
Be glad.
Yeah,
I went wide.
I paid about 60 for that one.
I love those pictures. Oh,
Yeah. Oh, we could do a nice intro there.
That is nice.
Yeah.
Actually.
Okay, let's do the thing and then the intro after.
They're all there.
Look how nice those look.
I know.
Quite
Can I just
simple.
put those out of frame?
Yep.
Sorry.
This girl's a nut,
Just
man.
want to release some tension.
Right, come on and ask away.
What am I asking?
Okay, so you're asking me how
It would be.
we're all in the frame, yeah?